Welcome back to Team Harrow. We're joined by Stewart Lapayowker, founder of Lapayowker Jet Council. Even though Stuart didn't serve in the military or win a sports championship, he's one of the most experienced and successful aviation attorneys in the industry. Personally, Stuart has been a huge wealth of not just aviation knowledge, but business know-how. It's a conversation packed with insights you'll want to hear.
Okay, I figured. I was
I
just
have a
double
guy
checking.
in my. This is good.
Yeah.
This is like I got Baba Booey in my ear.
Yes, it's just like that. All right, we're rolling. So 3, 2, 1, launch. Stuart, it's official.
It's official. Here
You're
I
here.
am. Yeah.
The
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and making the trip up here. This is going to be, I know, a very exciting show. The first episode, I talked about getting my legs blown off of me.
Okay.
I had another guy on here talking about fighting off a base attack in Afghanistan. And I have you in here to talk about tax aviation law.
Might not be the most interesting.
Yeah. No, but seriously, we know each other through work, through the aviation world. We've gone and shot guns together.
Yeah.
You've just been an interesting guy that I've come to know down here in South Florida and in the aviation space. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's have Stuart come in on Friday and we can bullshit and chit chat for a little bit.
Good. Yeah.
So, but I guess the first way to kind of kick this off is, how did you end up down in South Florida and into the aviation space that you're in now? Because it seems whenever I have aviation conversations in the business world of mine, all roads seem to lead to Stewart Lapidus one way or another. Excuse me, Lapayowker.
Lapayowker.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You're not the first.
Yeah.
I usually have to say it's tapioca with an L, so people know how to pronounce it. Well, let's see. I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Are you still
Went to
healing from
school.
the Eagles-Falcons game? The other
Yes. I have a funny story about that, but I practiced law in Philly. You know, went to undergrad, law school, practiced in a big firm. I was in the corporate department. I did mergers and acquisitions and finance and all that other boring stuff, securities. And I was maybe I was practicing for 6.5 years, something like that. And anyway, met Michelle, was a blind date. We got married. Her family is down here, and so she wanted to move down here. And it's tough for the Philly boy to leave Philly, I can tell you that. And we took the, the auto train.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was July 4th,
Okay.
1995, I think. And we took the auto train and we came down to Florida and we started our lives here. I worked for a firm in Fort Lauderdale, and then eventually I worked at a large firm in Miami, doing the same thing I was doing, which is mergers and acquisitions,
Mm-hmm.
drafting documents, things like that. And I guess I'm trying to think, that was maybe 96. It's the same year that I moved to that firm. One of the senior partners came to me and said, we're doing a lot of work for this local billionaire. We're doing his IPOs, we're doing his mergers and acquisitions, and I had been doing some of that. And he said, but his chief pilot isn't getting much attention. And his chief pilot needs to get some attention. He's feeling unloved. And he said, so do you want to be the airplane guy? And I was like, well, yeah, okay. I mean, I had flown like a little Cessna. I had done like the 152 training in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story about that one, maybe I can tell you. And I said, yeah, that sounds cool. And and I said to him, lawyers want to know, like, where's all the good stuff? Like,
Sure.
How do I learn this? Like, And I go, so where's the book? He said, I've done some of it. I said, well, you have a book? Where's the treatise? He goes, there's no treatise. You know tax, finance, contracts, whatever. Go talk to him and, see what this is all about. You'll be fine. And I did, and I became very close friends with his chief pilot. And
pilots tend to need a lot of attention and love.
Well, he was the director of aviation. It wasn't just the pilot. And, they had a staff.
Yeah.
They had 13 or 20 pilots or something like that.
Oh, my God.
And the thing about working for someone like that is he does a lot of firsts. He had a lot of aircraft that were used by a number of affiliates. I got my learning curve was like that because I was doing all this stuff and a lot of firsts too. So anyway, that's how I got into it.
Baptism by fire.
And then, I started, I would say it was at least a few years before I sort of had my own client, another client that wanted me to do aviation. I decided I was going to write an article. So I wrote an article. I started speaking, and, it sort of went from there.
Nice.
Got involved in NBAA.
Yeah.
It took several years to get on the NBA tax committee.
And for people that don't know what NBAA is,
National Business Aviation Association, the industry trade group. It's got over 9,000 members who operate aircraft. And I will say that the industry was, at least the lawyers, the aviation lawyers, they were very generous with their time, and they were interested in having me learn also, and it was a good experience. Deals were done a little more informally. There was less dense.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the aircraft owners in that sphere sort of knew each other, so there wasn't a lot of backstabbing. There wasn't a lot of shenanigans. Because if you didn't do it right, because if somebody did you wrong, there was a long memory.
So starting from that, I guess, have you seen a transition where maybe there is a little more backstabbing and shenanigans going on?
No, it's not that. It's more people are doing, are in the business.
Yeah.
There's money to be made in the business in a variety of areas, whether it's being a broker or whatever, and it's become more complicated. It always was complicated, just people weren't doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But it became more complicated, more people involved. You have a lot of personalities.
Well, I think like in any small group or industry, and finding myself in this world, everyone knows everyone. You go to the NBAA show in Vegas, like we were just talking about before, which I know we'll plug your zombie burlesque.
No, you don't have to plug them. Believe me, they get enough people.
You go there and you walk the floor, and it's such a small space. You know everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I have I've been doing it so long. I have people come up to me and they as if they know me, and that hey Stu, how you know? I don't
remember you.
They know me from wherever.
Yeah.
Whether it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have a podcast too, but or they were in a deal with me or whatever. But I'm been doing this since I've been practicing since 1989. I've been doing this since 1996. So that's a lot of people to know in 30 years or whatever. And it's kind of cool, you know, and I just smile and shake hands.
But I definitely think going back to the shenanigan piece it's such a small industry. It amazes me when people act a fool thinking that this will never come back and touch them. Whether if it's a pilot, whether if it's an owner, whether if it's another management company, whether if it's another charter company. And I feel like every day I have another story to add to the book of aviation shenanigans.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Which I think that's going to be the title of it. It's just aviation shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, it's we see our role, at least what I do, is I have my antenna up for things that are not quite right. Yeah. And I will tell you, and there's in every deal, almost every deal, I'm learning. Yeah. There's a good one. Hopefully most of the time I can sort of identify it and call it out and sort of put a stop to it. But there's shenanigans. And people think they can continue to do that kind of stuff, which it's a shame because the industry is comprised of some very good people. You have some ultra high net worth people who have aircraft who are really smart. Yep. Okay, they're really smart in their area, but not in this area, and they're relying on people to help them. And sometimes that reliance is misplaced.
Do you sometimes think that these owners that purchase their aircraft, they've been very successful in whatever industry or venture they've done? Do you sometimes feel or see that because they're a subject matter expert in, say, real estate, they somehow feel like they're going to be a subject matter expert
Right.
in aviation.
Right. They translate their, and that's, I think, that's natural.
Yeah.
And one of the things we do at the beginning of a engagement is we'll run through a little deck, and the first slide is myths and misconceptions,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to sort of, if it's a real estate person, I'll try to say, well, how deposits work, they don't work that way here, or how damages work, they don't quite work that way here. And I know you put aircraft, when you buy real estate, you put it into a single purpose entity, and all is well and good, which is perfect under corporate law. That's what people do. That's what the purpose of them is. But here, you can't operate in a single purpose. I mean, and if their head eventually explodes.
Yeah.
But then the light bulb comes on.
They start to understand. This is why I have you.
It's different. It's different. There's a regulatory overlay to the deals and to the operation of an aircraft, or the acquisition and operation of an aircraft. You think that your entity is a U.S. citizen. Well, you're a U.S. citizen, but the way your entity is set up, it doesn't qualify for FAA registration.
Yeah.
So we have to do something else. So it just doesn't make sense to them. But
yeah,
that's what we do. Almost all day we're educating. That's what our job is.
It's interesting how complex it can be to own and operate a plane,
Mm-hmm.
in the space that we work in. But like you said, it's at the end of the day, it's educating. For me, that's actually one of the rewarding aspects of this job and working in aviation. I enjoy it because there's problems to solve. I have this operational mindset. All right, this is what we need to do. How are we going to do it? There's all these different variables. How do we figure out success, right? And along the way, it's that educational piece of letting them know, like, hey, I'm a value add. This is what we do here. Guess what? I'm on your team. I'm not out here to get you. No matter what your pilot's telling you, like, I'm actually on your side. So
no, and listen, and obviously we have no skin in the game.
Yeah.
We have one duty, and that's to the client, and we have no conflicts of interest, and so we can call out whatever we see. I will say it's gratifying when I'm working with maybe the business folks or the legal folks at a public company, and we've gone through a lot of these issues, and maybe we're on our second deal, or they're quoting back to me what they recall the rule to be, and it's like they got it. I got good students. They were good students. That's actually pretty fun,
So those are the good students. For us, we've unfortunately had to part ways with some of our clients, mm-hmm. because we view it more of a partnership where I want to be a good fit for you and you should be a good fit for me.
Sure.
And that's success, right? Mm-hmm. We've had to fire clients here and there, and it hurts. Have you had to do the same from your role, since people, you're helping with the acquisition process and you're kind of there as just a teacher and help to guide them along the way? But have there been clients where you're like, look, man, you're tripping over yourself. I'm trying to help. This is just not worth the fee.
So, I mean, our job, and this is forms the foundation of being what I was originally, which is a corporate lawyer, is to identify the exposures and let the clients make their own decisions. Mm-hmm. As long as they're making an educated decision, if they're going to make the wrong decision, as long as it's not illegal, if it's just going to cost them money, it's up to them. It really is. It's not my job. I'm not a policeman. Mm-hmm. If they get to the point where I feel like there's reputational risk to us, yes, we will, and it's funny because when you put it that way to them, they think hard about it, and sometimes they come around.
Yeah,
and sometimes they don't, but it's rare. It's rare. There's clients can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I just think that with some education, they come along. They come around.
Where do you see? We're in an interesting space, I think, in the aviation cycle, especially coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
And, people want to talk about the pilot shortage.
Mm-hmm.
We can debate the pilot shortage. The charter market is kind of riding itself. The acquisition market has kind of done a 180 from where it was a couple years ago. what have you seen in the aviation space right now from your point of view and where you sit?
Yeah, I mean, so COVID, we as you know, the market was frozen starting in March once the announcement came out that we were closing, the world was closing down, or at least the U.S. was closing down. So it froze in March. I learned to play the guitar.
You also do stand-up comedy.
I do. I do. Talk about that later. But I started playing the guitar. The phones weren't ringing. I started working on our systems and some other things to keep busy. It was about around the end of April, beginning of May. Things started thawing out. We started getting phone calls because what was happening is people who had never owned aircraft and who had the money and who had never spent the money on private aviation wanted to get into it because of the health issues. And so you had newcomers to the market, and you had this spike in demand and for aircraft, and you had a limited supply. Plenty of owners wanted to sell, but it was still a limited supply compared to the demand, and it was bananas. I mean, I would say, the fourth quarter is the busiest quarter typically because people want to get things done. The fourth quarter was May of 2020 till the end of 2020. That was the fourth quarter.
It was unbelievable.
And the market was on fire. And the sellers people weren't doing inspections. Sellers were saying, no, sign here.
Yeah.
And buyers had no choice. And
but you also had buyers literally walking up with briefcases full of money and just saying, I'll take that plane.
I haven't seen that, but no, I really haven't seen that. But they had the money.
Yeah,
they had the money, and they saw it as a health issue, and I think unfortunately a lot of them didn't recognize that it's not what an aircraft costs, it's what it costs, because operating an aircraft. We were seeing people who were maybe originally going to buy a King Air. Now they can get a G4 at the time, G5, whatever, for $2 million. An older one, because they just wanted it, and it was big, and we could get it for $2 million. And
shiny new toy.
It's $2 million a year to operate that thing. Yeah. So people were not going into it with their eyes open.
You're a consigliere of sorts. I'm a consigliere of sorts from our job.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, where was the person trying to advise them about, hey man, that's great that you want to buy the jet for $2 million, but just I need to remind you it's going to cost about $2 million to operate it.
Boy, lots of things I have to say
now.
Money drives it.
Yeah.
Objectives drive it. I used to have a management professor in college in business school who used to say people do what's in their best interests. And I believe that. And that means also your advisors too, your consultants or whoever it is. So sometimes it's not in the client's best interest. I'll tell you that there are plenty of people, lawyers all over, who you call them and you say, I want you to do this letter of intent. I want you to do that. Blah, blah. Yes, sir. They'll do it, and that's it. We ask a lot of questions, and sometimes the clients are like, "What? Why are you trying to talk me out of it? Like, why are you?" And because I want you to be happy. I want you to satisfy your objective. I don't want an unhappy client.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to understand about what's going on here. So, there's a lot of reasons why people. And the other thing is, people have misconceptions about. We get calls. Well, I want the bonus depreciation.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money. People made a lot of money during COVID. I want the bonus depreciation, and they'll call. It'll be December, and they want to buy an airplane, and they were told by someone that they could get bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation is a tax concept. It's not. It's accelerated depreciation, and there are a lot of rules around it. And a lot of times they can't satisfy those. For example, the client who has a liquidity event and only has money and no business to operate the aircraft in, they come at us with, we want to get the depreciation, and they can't. So
there's always that someone that's whispering in their ear about, hey, buy this, you'll be able to depreciate it. I got a better one for you. Buy it and you can charter it, and it will pay for itself.
And what they don't realize is that a charter rate is determined by the market and not by the fully allocated cost of owning and operating the airplane.
Yeah.
You're not making money chartering. You're offsetting some fixed costs, a small percentage, and you're putting wear and tear on the airplane. That's not to say you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's just how it works.
It's still to this day, it's unbelievable how many people we have conversations with that talk about chartering, or they come to us because they have an issue like, hey, I was going to charter it, it's just costing too much money, it's not working out, I don't enjoy the plane. And it's the education eye-opening for them of when we actually explain to them, like, look, you're actually putting more cycles on it, it's costing you money to charter it, and they're like, why wasn't this explained to me in the beginning? And it's like, well, somebody wanted to use your plane to charter the plane.
Right. And you do have
and I get it, I don't want to just shit on the charter world.
Right.
There's a reason that they exist.
Right.
We are, some of our clients charter, like, I get it. It's you just have to have all the facts.
Yeah, I mean, you have management companies that will also be the broker.
Yeah.
You have management companies who have aircraft where they have owners that want to sell their aircraft and they're finding you to buy that aircraft. Well, it remains in their management, so that's good for them. There's a lot of stuff to look out for. It's again, I see there's something new under the sun almost every deal.
Yeah, especially down here in South Florida. It's like its own little swamp.
I don't know. I don't know. I could never figure out why. I don't know. Maybe people want to live under palm trees. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just yeah. So.
Yeah. There's a LinkedIn post I saw that someone had sent me yesterday from it wasn't a charter operator, but it was a new company where basically they were selling their service, as in, if you subscribe to them, they basically go to market and find the cheapest aircraft out there for you.
Right.
Which I think briefs really well on the big PowerPoint screen, but to take a step back, especially right now, as the charter market is slowly maybe righting itself, it's definitely decreasing. It's not increasing where it was during COVID, where people were just throwing stupid numbers on charter trips.
I mean, you had some of the fractional providers who sell jet cards, which is charter basically. They stopped selling them because they couldn't handle the capacity.
Yeah,
and that's an honest thing to do.
Yeah,
but they couldn't handle the capacity, so they stopped.
No, it was incredible.
That's how much was.
But this service was out there, and they were talking about that we'll get you the best price, lowest price. And I was talking with one of my colleagues who Dave, and I was like, it's kind of funny that shouldn't you take a step back and say, wait a second, if everyone is trying to throw out the lowest number, do you really want to go to someone that's in like a race to the bottom? Because usually the company that's like the most desperate and will slash it to the bottom, I would not that they're doing something unsafe, but I would definitely question, like, man, if you're hurting that bad to quote a trip for that low, what else is going on behind the curtain?
Well, I think, and we get a lot of calls about this. Somebody will send us an agreement, and they'll say, "Hey, this is a charter agreement," and it's not really. It's an agreement with a charter broker, which is what you're talking about. Someone who will act as it's allowed.
Yeah.
Someone who will act, if it's done right, someone will act as your agent and go out and find the charter for you.
Yeah.
And there are rating agencies and Argus and Wyvern and all these that will rate these all different charter, but I don't think the clients necessarily know about that stuff. They're probably buying into the advertising. And there's an issue of, there's a misconception about safety, for example. We had a client once who said, we're going to save, here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy this airplane. It's a jet. We're going to save money. We're going to save money because every time we want to fly it, we're going to hire contract crew. But that the safest pilots are the two that train together and work together. You have two different people, you might have some issues. So there's really a misunderstanding about how that all works.
Yeah. there is a misunderstanding.
We do not advise on operational ethics. I'm just saying that. We're lawyers. We don't advise on operational
It's
ethics.
on the recording. Don't worry.
That's anecdotal. It's anecdotal.
Prank call.
Don't
prank
write
call.
that down. Yes.
It is funny how much we're talking about like the gray area, like misnomers, just misunderstandings of what people think the aviation space is and what really goes on. Like when I tell people I work in private aviation, I'll be at soccer or dance and catch, just meeting one of the other. Oh, what do you do? I was like, I work in private aviation. Oh, like, so like what? Like jets? And I was like, yeah, I work for an aircraft management company. And they're like, oh, so kind of like net jets? And it's like,
right.
It's usually depending on how much I want to go to the conversation. If I like the person, I'll just be like, yeah, net jets. That's kind of it.
No, there's definitely, there has not been a good industry-wide effort to educate the public about. I mean, NBAA does a great job. I'm not sure that all this information gets out to the
and that's what I say, like Johnny,
everyday person.
Yeah, exactly. John Smith, this everyday citizen, isn't going to go walk the floor at NBAA, right? I think that people like. Do you know Dan Harris? He has the Ironbird podcast.
He may have been one of the people that came up to me.
Probably
when I was walking.
Yeah. You would be great for his podcast.
Okay.
Because, here we talk about leadership and success and resilience and grit and from athletes and the military and in the business world. But Dan it's aviation specific, and I sat on I was on his podcast. He's had a lot of other people on, and he's somebody that I think his podcast does a great service to this industry, where you see these little clips on LinkedIn or on other social media components that he has for his show that people are like, oh, I never thought of that, or like the safety component that you're talking about, right? Or all these ratings. He just had someone on. I apologize, Dan. I forgot who you just had on recently, but I saw it on LinkedIn, and the guy the question that Dan asked him was, what is your take on like Argus and Wyvern, right? And I think that somebody that's looking at a charter probably puts a lot of weight into that. Right. I think somebody that's been in the aviation space understands a little more that, like, yeah, you have to have certain components to get that rating, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're like the safest, right? I
mean, I think that the public is educated by sort of widespread, like bigger media, like what do you see in movies? You see the celebrity flying on the jet. You see the spy flying on the jet. You see the ultra high net worth person flying on the jet for pleasure or to do something. What you don't see is what goes on every day, which is, the CEO of a company being able to fly somewhere to get a deal done, and then be able to be accessible to the board, accessible to the rest of the company, with all the communication that he can do in the airplane, and get back to do other things.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the things. It's boring. That's why. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. Aircraft themselves are sexy. I mean, when we get a phone call from a buyer, maybe a new buyer, you can. I don't have to see it. I can hear the adrenaline pumping in the neck.
Yeah.
And you have to just, let's think about that. Let's talk about how we need to do this. But the point is that, and I'm not sure how well we are educating the general public about the use and the purpose of general aviation aircraft.
There's definitely the forward-facing, like you said, like the sexy aspect, the spy, the celebrity on the plane, and I think our industry is very smart marketing that, right? Like I think that we joke about it that it's the same LinkedIn profile picture for a jet broker across the board. It's probably someone sitting on a jet, legs crossed.
Or they're walking up the gangway.
Big watch. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's this like, man, this person just smells of success.
Yeah.
And that's that forward-facing piece. But the behind-the-scenes operational piece where we live, that's why when we show up to meetings, it's like, no, our job's actually pretty easy and boring. The plane takes off, the wheels come up, we get you to the location. It's all the little nuances that led up to that taking off, that making sure that when the plane gets there, everything is perfect for you.
I mean, why is Air Force One the way it is? Because we need the leader of the country to be rested
Yep.
and ready when he lands or she lands, whoever it is, and that's important. Well, and of course that has to do with the safety, security, and well-being of the country. But for a CEO, or other business folks, it's with respect to the success of their company.
Yeah.
And believe me, it may look sexy and comfortable. They don't want to be. Most of them don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
They want to be
It's
home.
work.
They want to be home.
Yeah.
They have kids too. They want to be, and just like me, when I'm traveling, I feel so out of sorts. I sitting in a hotel room with my laptop doing my work, and it's like I just feel like I'm out of sorts.
Yeah.
And if you can, and so I'm not sure that I'm 110% as productive as I could be, but I think that's the same thing in business. I think that we want them to be productive.
Sure. One of my West Point classmates, he was a general's aide for a little bit, and they had the government has their own G4s and their 5s or 550s, whatever it is, in their fleet. So they would fly around in that, and the general would call it his sleeping and feeding tube, because that was the only time that he had to take a quick nap, get a meal in before like the next meeting wherever they were going for something, back on the plane, another 8 hours over here. They'd be able to do meetings up there.
And it was only recently, and I'm going to say in the last 10 years, where you had communication aboard the airplane. I mean, you had sat phones and stuff. I'm not sure how well they worked, but you didn't have internet.
Mm-hmm.
And
now we have Starlink. Everyone wants Starlink on the plane.
Starlink, you have the Wi-Fi. You can stream if you want to watch a movie. But if you're doing work, you can work on your lap. You don't have to. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like. Well, I can, because I've been on airlines, and I won't say who they are, where there is no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. And you're sitting on the airplane for 6 hours, and you don't know what's happening back at work.
Yeah.
Or what's happening with your clients or whatever, and I have to wait. That drives me crazy. But with these modern aircraft, you can actually get your business done.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Team Harrow. Be sure to follow and subscribe for more inspiring stories and expert advice from leaders across various fields. Until next time, stay resilient and keep pushing forward.